Imagine for a second that you're standing in a room, but it's not. It's not really a room. It feels more like a cavern.
Okay.
All around you, there are these thick industrial concrete walls, and they just seem to go up forever. It's pitch black, absolute darkness, except for these aggressive strobe lights that just cut through the air.
That's pretty intimidating.
It is. And you're surrounded by hundreds of people, all just sweating, moving, completely lost in it. But here's the weird part. Even in that crowd, you feel this intense isolation. It's just you and the dark. And then a sound hits you.
And knowing where you're taking us, I'm guessing it doesn't just feel like music coming out of a speaker.
No, exactly. It feels physical. It hits you right in the chest. It feels like a structure is being built around you, brick by sonic brick. It's heavy, it's precise, and it completely controls you.
You're describing what, for some people, is basically a religious experience. But I have a feeling we're heading to a very specific club in Berlin.
We absolutely are. We're talking about the legendary Berghain. But more importantly, we're talking about the man who helped engineer that specific feeling. The architect who looked at those concrete walls and decided to build a soundtrack that could, withstand them. Today, we are doing a deep dive into the work of Len Faki.
This is a fascinating subject. And look, for anyone listening who follows techno, the name Len Faki it's Titan level. He's not just a DJ who shows up and plays records.
Right.
He's widely seen as a pivotal figure in defining the modern Berlin sound. But what makes him so interesting for a deep dive isn't just his fame, it's his methodology. He is a master of what we call the long set.
Exactly. And that is our mission for this deep dive. We're not just going to list his biography or, say which festivals he played at. We've pulled this really great analysis from a column by MMR.
Len Faki's Deep Techno Analysis, From Berlin to the World.
That's the one.
Yeah.
And we're going to try to reverse engineer his work.
Yeah, we want to perform a structural analysis. We want to decode how he builds that sonic journey. We'll be looking at specific tracks. We'll break down the BPMs, that's beats per minute for anyone new to this. And we'll look at the mixing techniques he uses to essentially control a crowd's psychology for 4, 6, sometimes 10 hours.
I am so excited to unpack this. It feels like we're trying to figure out the magic trick behind a perfect night out.
Yeah.
Because when you're on the dance floor, you just think, wow, this is amazing.
Right.
You don't realize there's this mathematical blueprint happening behind the decks.
It is engineering, pure and simple. It's physics and psychology, and they're working together.
So let's start at the foundation. To understand the Berlin sound, logic would say we start in Berlin.
Right. Surprisingly, no. To understand the roots of this particular architect, we have to go back to the mid-90s in Stuttgart.
Stuttgart.
Yeah.
Okay, not exactly the techno capital of the world, but clearly a breeding ground.
Yeah.
So Len Faki, his real name is Len Faki, he has Turkish roots, was born there. The source material says he didn't start out using his own name.
That's right, yeah. He started under the alias Le Monde.
Le Monde. It sounds very sophisticated, a bit French house maybe.
A little bit. And he was cutting his teeth in the local Stuttgart scene. But here's the first real key insight into his character, the thing that tells us why he became who he is.
What's that?
He wasn't just a consumer of the scene. He was a builder from day one.
What do you mean by a builder?
Well, a lot of DJs just want to play gigs. They want the party. Faki was building infrastructure. He founded the label Monoid in 97 and then Feis in 99.
Wow, okay.
And this is crucial context because it shows he had a producer's mindset. He wanted to curate a sound, to own the means of production, not just show up and spin someone else's music.
That makes total sense. He's taking ownership of the whole aesthetic. He's not just a passenger, he's driving the bus. But the real turning point, the moment where he goes from guy from Stuttgart with a label to the architect of energy, that's the move to Berlin.
Precisely. And we have to really frame this properly for you. Moving to Berlin in the early 2000s wasn't just, moving for cheap rent.
Right.
It was integrating into a very specific, very intense ecosystem. And the source highlights his deep relationship with Osgutton,
which is the record label that's directly connected to Berghain.
Exactly. And this isn't just some standard record deal. Berghain is. It's unique. It's in a former power plant. It's massive. Concrete. Soaring ceilings. By becoming a resident DJ there, Faki wasn't just playing music, he was interacting with that specific architectural space.
I love that idea that the building itself shapes the music. I mean, think about it. If you're playing in some small carpeted room, you play one way. The sound gets absorbed.
It's deadened, yeah.
But if you're playing in a massive concrete cathedral, you can't play flimsy, messy music. The acoustics would just eat it alive. It'd sound like mud. You need sound that's clean enough to punch through all that echo.
Exactly, it's a feedback loop. The source notes this residency is what let him develop his signature sound. He had to make tracks that sounded good in that room, so the kick drums got harder, the reverb got bigger. He was essentially sonic-proofing the concrete.
So, okay, let's get into the nuts and bolts of that sound. Let's pop the hood. The source material breaks down the anatomy of a track. It looks at his most iconic productions to show us the blueprint.
This is where it gets really fascinating for the audiophiles, but even if you're not technical, this explains why you feel certain things on the dance floor.
Okay.
The analysis breaks these tracks down by frequency and function. So let's start with a track called BX3.
BX3. Okay, this was released in 2009. The stats are 125 BPM, key of G major.
So 125 BPM is driving, but it's not frantic. It's a solid tempo. What really stands out here is the construction. The source describes a buildup of the kick and hi-hats, which is pretty standard for techno.
Right.
But then, to create the energy, he layers white noise and sirens over the top.
Sirens, like police sirens. That sounds
Yeah.
stressful. Why would you want that in a club?
It's designed to be stressful. Think about it biologically. What happens when we hear a siren or a hiss or a scream?
We get alert. Cortisol spikes. Fight or flight.
Exactly. He is hijacking your nervous system. The source calls this a peak time weapon. He uses the heavy bass to ground you, to make you feel safe, and then uses the high-frequency sirens to induce anxiety.
That is incredibly manipulative. I love it.
It creates tension. And in music, the release only feels good if you have enough tension beforehand. When those sirens finally stop and the beat drops back in, the relief is just massive. It's euphoria.
Okay, so that's the anxiety-inducing weapon. What about something different? The source talks about the track Mekong Delta.
Mekong Delta. This one's a beast. It's over 8 minutes long.
8 minutes. In the age of TikTok where songs are like 2 minutes long, that feels like an eternity.
In the world of the long set, 8 minutes is just a chapter. It's running a bit faster at 129 BPM, also G major. But the key expert note here isn't about speed, it's about the stereo layer structure.
Stereo layer structure. Okay,
Right.
I can break that down. What does that actually mean for me standing in the middle of that room?
Sure, so imagine you're wearing headphones. Most simple tracks just shoot sounds straight down the middle. Left and right are the same, mono.
Okay.
But Faki paints with the width. He'll play certain percussion sounds way over to the left, others to the right, and keeps the kick drum locked in the center.
So it creates like a 3D effect.
Exactly. The source says it creates waves of emotion. Because the sounds are moving around your head, it feels immersive, it wraps around you, it stops being a song you're listening to, and becomes an environment you're inside of.
But here's what I'm wondering. If you have sirens screaming at you and these 3D waves crashing over you for 4 hours, you'd be exhausted.
Yeah.
You'd leave.
Which brings us to the most critical and maybe the most misunderstood tool in his arsenal.
Yeah.
The stabilizer. The track, Death by House.
I love that name, Death by House. It sounds intense, but the track itself is actually slower.
It is, yeah. It's 122 BPM. In a techno set, that is significantly slower. It almost feels sluggish compared to the 129 we were just talking about. The source describes the kick as sharp but heavy, with this smooth, rolling bass line.
So why play a slower track when everyone wants to party? Isn't the goal to just go harder and harder?
That's the rookie mistake. That's how you burn out a dance floor in an hour.
Ah.
The source calls this groove maintenance. It's a mid-set breather. If you stay at 100% intensity the whole time, the audience gets listener fatigue. Their ears get tired, their legs get tired, they just stop processing the music.
So Death by House is like an active recovery period in a workout. You keep moving, but you lower the heart rate.
Precisely. It stabilizes the floor. It locks everyone into a groove without just exploding their energy reserves. It says, we're still here, we're dancing, but take a breath, reset.
It's pacing. The difference between a sprint and a marathon.
And once you stabilize them, once they have their breath back, that's the perfect time to introduce emotion. Which brings us to My Black Sheep.
My Black Sheep. G minor. This one is described as heavily melodic.
This is the bridge. Up until now, we've talked about rhythm, noise, mechanics. My Black Sheep introduces these big, soaring pads and synths that fuse with the rhythm. It's musical. The source notes this is used for emotional peaks. It's less about the physical thump in your chest and more about the feeling in your head.
It's that moment where everyone stops looking at their shoes and actually looks at each other and smiles.
Yes, exactly. And then once you have them emotionally connected, once you have them locked in, you destroy them. With robot evolution.
Robot evolution. The name alone implies it's not going to be soft and cuddly.
Definitely not. Around 128 BPM, A minor, mechanical, futuristic, hard kick. This is the climax, designed for maximum tension and release. It's the fireworks display at the end of the night.
So if we look at the toolbox, we have the peak time weapon, the immersive drive, the stabilizer, the melodic bridge, and the climax.
Right. Those are the bricks. But just having the bricks doesn't make you an architect. You need a blueprint. You need to know when to place them. And this is the part of the source I found most compelling. The breakdown of the long set narrative arc.
Yes. I found this so fascinating because I think a lot of people just assume DJs are picking the next song based on, vibes.
Not at this level.
But the source actually lays out a timeline for a typical 2-hour-plus journey. It basically proves a great DJ set is calculated engineering.
Let's walk through it because this is something you can actually notice next time you're out. It starts with the first 20 minutes, the warm-up, mid-tempo.
Let's open the door.
Exactly. You're welcoming people, not yelling at them yet.
Yeah.
Then from minute 20 to 40, you get the build. You're tightening the screws.
Okay.
Then minutes 40 to 60, you hit the drive. This is where you drop a track like Mekong Delta.
Yeah.
You push the energy up, use that 3D stereo width. The room is fully engaged.
But then right when you think it's going to explode, we hit that 60 to 80-minute mark, the groove.
This is the push and pull principle. This is where Debts by House comes in. The source emphasizes that you need the dip to make the next peak feel higher.
That is such a key insight. It's about relativity, isn't it?
It's all relativity. If I play a track at 128 BPM, it sounds fast. But if I play a track at 122 for 20 minutes, and then I jump to 128, that 128 feels like light speed.
You are literally tricking their brains into thinking the fast part is even faster.
You're manipulating their perception of time and energy.
Right.
So after that stabilizer, from minute 80 to 100, you introduce the melodic peak with My Black Sheep. You engage their emotions now that they're rested.
And Ben.
Minute 100 to 120, high energy, euphoria, BX3. The sirens come in, the tension spikes, the cortisol is flowing.
And finally, after 2 hours of this, you hit the climax with robot evolution.
And then a cool down. It's a perfect narrative arc. Introduction, rising action, conflict, relief, climax, resolution. He's telling a story, but his words are kick drums and hi-hats.
It really highlights that DJing at this level, anyway, is pure psychology. But the source also mentions some technical wizardry. It's not just track selection, right? He's doing things to the audio itself.
Oh, absolutely. This is the difference between a selector and a mixer. The source points to his use of EQ, equalization, and filters.
Okay, let's break that down. I see DJs twisting knobs all the time. What is he actually doing with the EQ?
Think of sound like a sculpture. You have the low bass, the middle synths, and the high hi-hats. Faki uses EQ to carve out sections. For example, he might slowly cut out all the bass for 30 seconds.
So the music gets thin. It loses its power.
It gets thin and floaty, yeah. It loses its gravity. And the crowd instinctively knows something is missing. They crave the bass, and then bam, he slams it back in. By taking it away, he makes its return feel like a physical shockwave.
And the source also mentions reverb, creating space.
Right. Reverb is basically the sound of a room. If you shout in a cathedral, it echoes. That's reverb. Faki uses artificial reverb to change the virtual size of the room he's playing in.
So he can make it sound like it's in a massive canyon.
Huge, washy, distant. And then he can dry it up instantly, making the sound feel like it's whispering right inside your ear. He is literally reshaping the architecture of the room with audio effects.
We've talked about the man, the tracks, the structure. Let's zoom out. What's his legacy?
Well, the source argues that Faki was instrumental in exporting the Berlin sound to the rest of the world. You have to remember, for a long time, this dark industrial techno was very niche. It was a Berlin thing.
It was a secret, yeah.
But through his international touring and festivals, Faki took this very specific aesthetic that was incubated in the concrete of Berghain, and he broadcast it globally. He taught the world how to appreciate the dark.
He was the ambassador of concrete.
In a way, yes. But he's not just resting on his laurels. The source also mentions his sub-label, Podium.
Right. That was set up to find and nurture new talent.
Exactly. And this is vital. A scene dies if it doesn't have new blood. Faki isn't just playing, he's curating the next generation. He understands that for the ecosystem to survive, you need to lift up new architects with new blueprints.
And he's keeping up with the times himself. The source mentions his move into online streaming and new album projects like Fusion.
It shows adaptability. He's keeping that tradition alive, that rigorous attention to structure and sound, but delivering it through modern channels. He's not a relic. He's still an active architect.
Okay, let's try to unpack this whole deep dive. We've covered so much ground.
Yeah.
What are the big takeaways for our listener?
For me, it boils down to three things. Frequency, structure, and space.
Okay.
He's a master of frequency, balancing the anxiety of the highs against the comfort of the lows. He's a master of structure, that 2-hour narrative arc. And he's a master of space, using Berghain to define a sound that feels physical, three-dimensional.
And the key insight here is that a DJ set isn't just a playlist. It's a manipulation of time and emotion.
Exactly. It makes you realize that when you're on that dance floor, you're not just moving because you want to. You are moving along a path the DJ laid out for you hours, maybe days in advance. He decided 10 hours ago that you would feel euphoric at 3 a.m.
That is a wild thought. You know, this whole discussion about how Berghain's architecture shaped Faki's sound has got me thinking.
What's on your mind?
Well, here's a thought for our listeners to mull over. We established that Faki's sound-heavy, dark, industrial role was a direct response to the thick concrete walls of his residency. He built music to fit his room.
Right. If he played that music in a beach bar, it wouldn't work.
Exactly. So how does our own physical environment shape the work we do? If you work in a sleek glass office, do you think differently than if you work in a cluttered basement?
That is a profound question. Does your environment dictate your output?
Do the acoustics of your life change the music you create? Something to think about next time you walk into your workspace. Are you fighting the room or are you building for it?
Indeed. We are all architects in some way.
That is all we have time for today on this deep dive into the architect of energy. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you on the next one.
Goodbye.